This is WCRN Weekend with your host, Pat Rice.
In a world where technology rules the world, it can be kind of hard to keep up with it all, from cell phones, emails, to social media. And as parents, it can even be more overwhelming when your child is using, up to date, or even know more about technology than you do. Joining us now is Titania Jordan, the Chief Parent Executive of the recently new and hip app for both parents and children, Bark. Bark is an app that helps both parents and children from the internet. The app keeps parents in the loop of their children's activity from a distance without being overbearing, and the app can possibly save your child's life from inappropriate content to predators or even threats. Welcome to the show, Titania. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on to our show. We really appreciate it. Could you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got involved with technology and Bark?
Sure, yeah. So I actually started in the world of radio way back in the day before social media.
Oh, wow.
Then social media launched. I also became a mother and wanted to work from home and started a social media marketing agency. More and more of my clients at the agency were tech companies, and it was so cool to get that inside look into a field that I did not, set out to study and thrive in. And I was bit by the bug. I wanted to learn everything about developing apps and user experience and interface and spreadsheets and databases. It was just so fascinating to me because I wasn't introduced to that, in my educational efforts. And so I dove right in, and Bark is now my fourth startup, and I absolutely love technology that has a propensity to do a great deal of good in the world. It's one thing to build the next video game or addictive app, but it's another thing to work on something that is changing lives and saving lives, and that's what we're doing.
And that's an incredible mission to have and goal to have, and you are definitely involved with technology, as I've seen you on Fox News, from Steve Harvey to Atlanta Tech Edge, and which I believe you're from Atlanta, correct?
That's correct.
And you've become the face of technology, not just in Atlanta, but now throughout the country. And could you tell us a little bit about some of the previous startups that you had before Bark?
Sure, yeah. So I was a part of Red Rover, which was an app to help parents find what in the world to do with their children. Started in New York City and then expanded across the country, San Francisco, Chicago, Atlanta. That was really fun because at that time I had a young child who wasn't in school, and I knew about the big things, the Georgia Aquarium and the High Museum of Art, but I didn't know about all the little things there were to do with my son Jackson. So that was really cool, really fun to weave in parenting with tech. Next startup was KidsLink, which was kind of like a Dropbox, but for families, a way to keep all those important records, whether it's immunizations, sports-related things, that sort of thing, in the palm of your hand. From KidsLink, I launched Privet, which was like Yik Yak, an anonymous app, but for parents. So we didn't have a lot of the immaturity that came with a college-based anonymous app, but we had a lot of the community that lacked on Facebook and Instagram because people were too afraid to share their real struggles, real lives, reveal their identity.
Exactly.
But they would certainly do that from an anonymous standpoint. And Bark was getting started at the same time that Privet was taking off, and we needed a way to monitor our own internal conversations going on within the Privet app, to look out for cyberbullying and other inappropriate, things that people just felt the need to say. And so we were working with Bark to utilize their algorithm for our platform and also help train the Bark models, because Bark is, artificial intelligence, and every single data point helps to train the machine learning to get smarter with each use. And ultimately, when I left Privet, Bark said, "Hey, we would love to have you full-time. Please come join us." And the startup life is hard. It is the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. And I was not going to join another startup unless it was going to be worth it. And Bark was absolutely worth it. So here I am, and it's amazing.
Wow, what an incredible journey. I mean, it seems like you've been all over the place. And just going back a little bit before we really jump into this, what were the first radio station that you started at the very beginning of your career?
Yes, I was at WSTR FM in Atlanta, Star 94. and it was, top 40. So we had Usher and Janet Jackson and J-Lo and Rihanna coming through our halls. I was in my 20s and just sitting there looking at these people walking by my desk like, are you freaking kidding me? So
that's a wonderful experience. Yeah, that is super cool. And so now, getting into Bark, could you name a few of the major concerns that parents have to worry about when their child gets involved with the online social media world?
Absolutely. So there are the initial concerns parents have with just screen time. How much time should they be in front of a device, knowing that devices affect the addictive part of the brain, and also the light exposure will affect their sleep cycles. And children need sleep in order to grow and thrive. So there's that medical component. Beyond that, there's the content dangers. There's the revealing of too much information, putting them at risk for cybersecurity concerns, whether it's identity theft or even more so threats from online predators who are going to the internet now to groom children. There's cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is extremely prevalent. If you don't think it's happening to your child, it probably will. And if not them, one of their friends in their very close circle. And that's a big deal because children, because they are not communicating as much in real life with each other, there's a lack of empathy, and they have a higher propensity to be unkind to each other because they can hide from behind a screen and from behind a device and can't see how their words and actions are affecting the human on the other end. So cyberbullying. All of this immersion in technology and seeing the highlight reels of everybody's best life on Instagram, the filtered photos.
Oh, yeah. The dog faces on Snapchat.
Yep. So now there's a rise in suicide and depression risks and anxiety. And that's directly correlated to increases in time spent on social media. Social media, I'm a big proponent of it. I use it. I'm addicted to it. I love it. It's helped me to connect with a lot of people, but it also can greatly contribute to that FOMO feeling, which is not something you want your 13-year-old immersed in.
Definitely not.
And then, no, not at all. And then sexting. You would not believe the stories I hear from parents and teachers. Sexting is now the new first base. So for your 13-year-old, it's no longer, is he going to kiss me? It's, he wants me to send a nude to him.
Yeah.
Like crazy, but that's where we are.
I can remember back in the day, because being a child of the new millennium, I grew up with cell phones, but not to the extent of what kids have nowadays. We had the old flip phones, which eventually turned into the iPhones, and people are getting in trouble for it, going to court. It's becoming like a pretty serious crime if you're sending out inappropriate photos.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if there is somebody under the age of 18 involved in any way, it's possession and distribution of child pornography. And that carries a very large weight in terms of, where you can live, where you can have a career, if you can even have a career. That's a big issue. And then, as we've seen with Parkland and just the state of schools over the past few years, increases in expressions of violence. The violent threats that we've caught with Bark are very alarming, but also very affirming that we're doing the right thing and helping in a lot of ways that just aren't currently out there.
We are speaking with Titania Jordan, the chief executive parent of the app Bark, and you're listening to WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830. We'll be right back.
Welcome to WCRN Weekend and your host, Pat Rice.
We are back. We've been speaking with Titania Jordan, the chief executive parent of the app Bark, about how to keep your kids safe online. Let's continue. As a parent, what kind of accounts can you link to that your child might be involved with? Could you tell us what are some of the sophisticated technologies that Bark uses to seek out the possible issues or concerns with the child's online activity, the all-around workings of the app Bark for a parent?
Sure, yeah. So Bark can monitor over 25 social media platforms. So, yes, everybody knows about Facebook and Twitter, but most teens are not there. Or if they're there, it's not. They're like where their real life is. They're on Instagram, they're on Snapchat, they're on Kick, etc., and we monitor that. So not only do we monitor social media, but we also monitor texting. So whether that's WhatsApp, iOS, Android, etc., iMessage, we can monitor that. And then email, whether it's school-based or home-based. So we're monitoring all of those things, and our algorithms are looking for those signs of cyberbullying, sexting, thoughts of suicide and depression, potential drug use, acts of violence, online grooming from creepy predators. And then once our machine learning algorithms detect those problematic issues, we then send alerts to parents and or schools who are connected to Bark so that they can take best recommended next steps, which we also include with the alert.
What's an example of a recommended step, like for a scenario? Let's say a child is being bullied. What is a recommended step that you guys would send out to a parent or the school?
So a few things. One is don't engage. A lot of times we will encourage the child to block the bully. Before they block the bully, take a screenshot of what was said in case they need to use it to prove that the bullying took place. We encourage them to report it to their local law enforcement or school, or share with the parent, perhaps have an open and honest conversation between the two parents of the children involved, because a lot of times just parental involvement can thwart things from escalating to the next level.
And would you say Bark can create a better bond of friendship between the child and parent, as many kids nowadays may not want to be exactly open about their online social media and gaming activities?
Absolutely. Yes. We are different at Bark from other options out there in a lot of ways, beyond just having the most coverage of any platform, and using AI instead of just feeding, a digest of issues to parents. We are big on promoting anti-helicopter parenting. So we're the first generation of parents that are raising children to be digitally savvy. And so we need to have open and honest conversations with our children. That means you don't just hand them a device and say, have fun, and let it babysit them. But you also don't hand them a device and then read every single thing that went out and came in from every single app and message, because no parent has time for that. We encourage conversations around safety and letting children become digital natives and have their independence and right to privacy. But at the same time, understand that as a parent, we've just been on the planet longer. We know more than they do. We know what can go wrong, and it's our job to keep them safe, whether it's making sure they buckle up their seatbelt in the car, put on sunscreen at the beach, or have some sort of monitoring on their device that can protect them from digital dangers.
Definitely.
And children are open to it. Children want and respect boundaries. Obviously, not the cumbersome ones, right?
Yeah.
But they want and respect boundaries.
And it seems like Bark, if for parents that might not have certain conversations with their children, Bark, the app, is technology. Everyone's hip to technology nowadays. It seems like it could influence a parent to have those conversations with their children, when before maybe they weren't having those conversations.
Absolutely. It's fascinating. A parent probably wouldn't send their child to a school for the first time ever without taking a tour of the school or meeting someone on the administration or staff. But what we're seeing is that parents are giving their child a device, whether it's a home-based one or just as a gift, a brand new iPhone, an iPad, Android, etc. And they don't understand the landscape of what they're handing over. When you give your child a device that can access the internet, you're literally enabling them to access the entire world 24/7. And the world can access them without proper controls, without some semblance of knowledge of what that means. It's super dangerous. And yes, with Bark, we are encouraging parents to just have conversations. And I'm guilty of it too. I don't want to sound super preachy. I mean, my son played Minecraft for probably a solid year before I actually sat down with him and was like, okay, what's the deal with this? Like, it doesn't matter that I didn't want to play it. I needed to learn about it. And so the next time he got into something, now it's Roblox, I sat down with him. I saw how you can chat with anybody who's on at the same time as you. And then we got to have a conversation about, what do you tell people online? Basically nothing, right? You don't give them your name, your age, your date of birth, where you go to school, what activities you like. Don't even tell them if you're a boy or girl. It's just not the place to do that. And so if it's working in my home, I'm assuming it's working across the country.
Exactly. But it's crazy. If you think about Facebook for a second, how people put their date of birth, their hometown, where they work. Some people even put their address and phone number, which amazes me. And now all this stuff coming out about Zuckerberg, about information and Cambridge Analytica. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. So, okay. People who use Facebook have to take responsibility for whatever they put on Facebook. And I guess I'm biased because I know that those quizzes online, they're just not for entertainment, right? There's a reason for that. They want you to buy something. They want to collect your information. Like, it's pretty ridiculous. You have to be digitally savvy. Don't put anything online that can be used against you or that can be used against you. And, I'm not that worried personally because marketers already know my birth date. Like, there have been too many things that I've filled out online to have like a completely untraceable path. But I'm also not worried because I'm not doing anything shady, right?
Yeah.
The most some marketer can know about me is my demographic profile. Well, okay, right? But if I was into some shady stuff, then I would be a little more concerned. From a more political standpoint, I don't appreciate any sort of bias that might be in my news feed. But at the same time, I, as a consumer of content, need to realize that if I'm only going one place for my content, even if it's breaking news, then shame on me. I need to have a more well-rounded news feed. Exactly. I need to go to also Twitter and maybe the actual news site directly. But if anything, the biased news feed, the fake news, is concerning to me because as a media outlet, you have a responsibility to report the truth. And if Facebook knew that was happening and didn't take action, that's a big problem.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's shame on them, to be quite honest. We are speaking with Titania Jordan, the chief executive parent of the app Bark, and you're listening to WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830. We'll be right back.
You're listening to WCRN Weekend. Once again, here's your host, Pat Rice.
We are back. We've been speaking with Titania Jordan, the chief executive parent of the app Bark, about how to keep your kids safe online. Let's continue. What are some of the major red flags that is seen the most, and what is a concern that really surprised parents or even you?
I would say the overall mental health issues we're seeing. Girls, per our data, are 12 times more likely to get involved in cutting themselves than boys. There's just a higher pressure on them to have perfect bodies, and starting around age 11 and 12, it's really, really discouraging and scary. Also, the increase in suicide attempts and, full out coming to fruition is also terrible. I mean, the fact that 8-year-olds are taking their lives because somebody was mean to them online, it just shouldn't happen. No. I would say, obviously cyberbullying and sexting, awful, and we know it's happening a lot, but that very, very fine line of next steps of suicide, severe depression.
It's horrible.
It's horrible, yeah.
Do you think in some ways like media, like music and movies, including social media, influence this kind of behavior in a way? Because I just want to mention as an example, I listen to some pop music, rap music, and some of it talks about abusing drugs. It talks about just a lot of negative stuff, but they try to flip it as I'm being positive. I'm trying to make it up out of where I came from, but at the same time, I'm abusing drugs and I'm not treating people properly.
Right. Well, this is completely off the rails, but the first time I heard Last Night Took an L, but Tonight I Bounced Back, I was like, oh my gosh, what's an L? What kind of drug is that? Like, and it was actually kind of refreshing to realize, oh, it was a loss.
Yeah.
And so I actually don't feel that pop culture is influencing children to do drugs more because, we've always seen drug usage, whether it was the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or now. It's actually pretty stable. But what is concerning to me is the proliferation of just certain body issues and images and stereotypes per these pop stars' Instagram accounts. Not everybody can look like Cardi B, right?
No,
I mean,
no.
she's had injections, and neither is that healthy nor appropriate for an 11-year-old girl.
No way.
It's one thing to listen to the music. It's another thing to kind of see these wealthy,
one percenters
people,
in a way.
Yeah, living their best lives, and how that's shaping these young children's ideals of what they want to be when they grow up. That's a little more concerning to me. I know, Cardi B is hilarious. Like, I love her. But again, I don't want my 11-year-old daughter following her on Instagram.
Right on. No, I completely agree. And this kind of goes into, now there are several teen texting codes, and you could call it slang-like terms used through social media. What are some examples that parents who are listening to the show now should know about? What are some terms that if they get an alert for it, they should be concerned about it?
Yeah, so a lot of people use the phrase Netflix and chill, casually or even in a joking manner. But sometimes it can mean more than watching a movie. It means hooking up. And so I don't want my 15-year-old asking her boyfriend if he wants to Netflix and chill, right? Because I don't think that means watching a movie.
No.
Yeah. Dabbing, obviously a popular dance move, but it's also a concentrated form of cannabis. So you definitely want to look out for that. The phrase or the letters KMS get thrown around a lot, like kill myself, and even KYS, kill yourself.
Wow.
When it's used in a joking manner, I just tripped in front of the boy I liked, KMS. That's obviously not a suicidal threat.
No.
But if you know your child has a propensity to be bullied and you get a bark alert that people are sending her KYS or him KYS, you absolutely need to step in because that is real and present danger.
That's quite disturbing, and I actually never even heard of that term, KYS or KMS. That's really new to me. The previous terms I knew more of, kind of a little bit of my ending era of being involved, college and high school and all that stuff. But wow, it's kind of sickening to know that stuff, but it's good to know. And, that's why Bark is such a great app. And how easy is it to connect the parents and child's accounts using Bark?
So if you have your children's passwords, which I think you should as a parent who pays for the service and device, it's super easy. You just enter the username and password into the field and connect Instagram, Snapchat, iCloud, etc. If you don't, and a lot of parents don't, which I understand, then there's a way that you can send your teen or tween a text or an email that says, hey, I want to use Bark to keep you safe online, but I'm not going to be a helicopter parent. Click this link, connect your accounts for mom and dad, and we'll keep you safer online.
That's super easy. You mentioned that schools can use Bark. What schools in our country use Bark? Are there any schools in Massachusetts?
There are schools in Massachusetts. We did a test pilot of Bark for schools this past fall just to see what the need might be. And it was fascinating. We caught a ton of issues, an average around 3 per student, and a school shooting threat, a bomb threat, and that was just for over 25 schools. And we were like, all right, every school in the country needs to have this. So mid-February of this year, we officially launched Bark for Schools for free for every school in the nation. And we have reached almost close to 1 million students now covered by Bark for Schools over the past 2 months.
Huge.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, we caught a child predator literally 2 days ago.
Really?
Yeah. And so we are just so thankful that these schools are coming on board.
Where was that location at with the child predator?
I can't say right now because it's an active investigation. That's how real and creepy it is.
That's pretty disturbing. I mean, no one wants to have those kind of predators in their community, but sadly we live in a world where there are those creeps that do live in our environment. And so it seems like Bark can bring students closer to each other and nicer to each other. Back in the day, there was always a saying, when you see something, say something. But now due to technology and an app like Bark, people are actually seeing something and they're actually going out to say something. Action.
Yes. There's, a reduction in the stigma around mental health. There's encouragement for students who are being bullied to stand up. It's just not acceptable anymore. We all need to be kind to each other, and that includes the people who might be kind of a jerk, right? The people who are kind of a bully, they need love too, and perhaps if somebody would pay attention to them and love them, they might not come back and do something harmful to other people, whether it's in real life or digitally. So there's a movement Again, thanks to the children at Parkland, they've really inspired all of us to pay more attention to what we can do, whether it's through tech, like our team at Bark, or just being a friend to somebody. And like you said, if you see something, say something, because it's going to take all of us working together to make a difference right now. We can't wait on, the people in positions of power higher up. We have to take action.
Correct. It's all about being a team. And now for parents, Where can they get Bark? How do they get a hold of Bark?
Yes, so it's super easy. You just go to www.bark.us. That's our website. So go to it from your cell phone or from your computer, or you can also download our app. We have an app for an iPhone. We have an app for Android parents. And so you download our app. It's Bark. We've got a cute little dog as our icon. That's because, we're your watchdog for internet safety.
And I read that it's about $9 a month.
So actually the first 7 days are free, but if you need a little more time to trial our service, just email us, help@bark.us, and we can extend that for you. And yes, it's $9 per family per month.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And what is the future of Bark?
Wow. We hope to not only protect children in school across America, but also in other countries. We've had a lot of inbound interest from Canada, New Zealand, Australia, the UK. And, if they need our technology, we want to be able to give it to them. So scaling across the world, and honestly, being an advocate for mental health for both children and parents, because its negative effects are on the rise, and we need to do everything we can to help.
Absolutely. Hey, Bark, this is a wonderful app. All you parents out there need to check it out. It could save your children. It could save the whole community and even the world. I want to thank you, Titania Jordan, for taking your time out to come on to the show. It was great talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was an honor. And anytime you're in Atlanta, hit me up, and I'll do the same when I'm up that way.
Most definitely. Thank you. I appreciate that. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
This has been another episode of Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830 WCRN.
This has been WCRN Weekend and your host, Pat Rice.